1 year ago, I uploaded the first big video to this channel and recapped my 20 favorite albums of 2023. Now, we're doing it again for 2024, with half the number of albums and ideally in half the time. Alright, like last time, allow me to give a brief preamble before we dive in. This list is subjective, it's my favorite albums, not my most streamed, and the specific placements are less of a definitive ranking and more of a fun way to reveal which album is coming up next. The time has come, let's begin the list, starting with...
Oh, hello? Well, John, I'm sure.
In life, I believe everyone acts with intention. We must move about this life carefully, always questioning the things that we say, do, and create. And what questions do we ask ourselves, you might be wondering? Well, I think the most important one is the most obvious. That being, is this Clairo shade?
You make me wanna dance it. You make me try on feminine.
Well, this list couldn't possibly be Clairo shade. I mean, look at her, she's right there. Clairo arrived on the scene as one of the most iconic artists when it came to the then emerging genre of bedroom pop. A minimalist style of pop with a DIY edge that, due to the ease of accessibility of music creation tools such as DAWs, evoked the image of the artist making the music from the comfort and convenience of their bedroom. Hence the genre's name. 6 years after her breakthrough, Clairo is sounding sophisticated, serene, and sentimental on her third album, Charm. Instead of returning to the #1 saxophone fan Jack Antonoff, who she worked with on her previous effort, Sling, Clairo decided to link up with Leon Michaels, aka the frontman of El Michaels Affair, who's produced records with everyone from Norah Jones to Black Thought. An intriguing artistic pairing to say the least, but one that works extremely well, as Clairo's soothing voice fits snugly into Michael's soft and lush arrangements. He also brings along some of his past collaborators to provide some fantastic musical additions, like Marco Benevento, who we have to thank for the gorgeous piano accompaniment on songs like Terrapin and fan favorite Juna. Many of Charm's lyrics focus on those initial moments of infatuation, where you're fantasizing or yearning, but also occasionally worrying or creating all sorts of what-if statements in your head. There's fleeting moments of certainty in one direction or another. She's confident in what she wants out of a relationship, though. She wants to be wanted, or to be sexy to someone, and for both parties to be honest about their feelings, so neither party is saying thank you for wasting their time. The album has a dreamlike quality to it, like you're being swept off your feet by the playful electric keys on Slow Dance, or the gently strummed guitars on Echo. It's a wonderful iteration of her staple bedroom pop sound, which you can hear key elements of, like the vintage soundscape of Glory of the Snow, that's elevated by flourishes of strings and flutes. It's an album that'll make your heart flutter, and your mouth flap as if to imitate a trumpet. Can't wait to see where Clairo goes from here.
Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Porter Robinson, a legend amongst the terminally online, always comes through with some sparkly, sugary electropop, like he did on previous albums Worlds and Nurture. And he continues to expand his sound, but also takes it to a new level on Smile, D, mixing in some powerful guitar for an enhanced blast of nostalgia, reminding you of mid-2000s pop rock. The vulnerable lyrics musing on fame, parasocial relationships, addiction, depression, and thoughts of cutting his life short all starkly contrast with some of the goofier quotables, which reads to me as though he feels obligated to throw them in as red herrings so that the serious messages get obfuscated, as Porter deeply understands and connects with the attention spans and media literacy of those in the internet age, as well as the widespread embrace of irony and softening serious subjects. Lyrics like Porter calling himself Taylor Swift on the opener, or referencing Pitchfork's infamous review of Jet's Shine On,
funny monkey takes a piss into his own mouth, crazy,
stand out by design, but are woven into their respective songs' larger themes of being a celebrity in the 2020s. On songs like Year of the Cup and Easier to Love You, Porter details his struggles with self-love and changing things about him to appeal to others, or even to his future self. It's all made even more complicated to do so when obsessive fans like the one portrayed on Mona Lisa permeate his fan base. All of this comes together in what might be Porter's most capricious album yet. Porter's vocals are front and center, often without effects or processing, over glistening chords and tangy beats. Truly the embodiment of this image. Porter continues to pave his own path here, and it just keeps getting better with every album. You'll think about and feel many different things, but he hopes it'll at least make you smile.
If an alligator grabs you, it might start a death roll.
2024 was a big year for women in rap. We had the Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj beef that kicked off the year, big singles from the likes of Glorilla and Sexy Red, Little Sims showed up on the latest Coldplay album, and many underrated albums from Rhapsody, Lexa Gates, Veda, and many more. And not to pit women in music against each other, but in my opinion, when it comes to female rap albums from 2024, there's one queen that reigns above them all. Or should I say, one swamp princess.
Put the motherfucking money in my motherfucking hands. I'm in Gucci in a bonnet spinning motherfucking bands. I got haters, I got fans, I got stands in the stands. Do they love her or they hate her? Either way they spinning bands. I could really give a damn, I could really give a fuck. Long as you.
At number 8, it's Doechii's Alligator Bites Never Heal. And I know this video is about albums, and this project is technically a mixtape, which is an important distinction in modern rap music, but if the Grammys can call this one of the best rap albums of 2024, then so can I, okay? The opening moments of this album are back-to-back hitters. Even though she's been in the game for a while now, it still feels like the end of Stankapoo is her mission statement.
And if those the only fears that I'll take to my grave, I'm pissing on you hoes living a date.
She also warns that this lifestyle and career path isn't for the weak on songs like the following track, Bullfrog. She then recounts her tumultuous 5-year come-up in the industry on the standout Denial is a River, a peek into an imagined therapy session where tensions build over these dissonant, aggressive piano chord stabs. She relives some of her unfortunately rough romantic history, as well as pressure from her old label to be a TikTok artist, and she knew she had more depth than that moniker would suggest. The struggle and hard work definitely paid off, as this is an excellent body of work. But as the album's title implies, her scars haven't faded. You can tell how much she loves herself, and you can tell how much she loves hip-hop. She wears her inspirations on her sleeve. She channels Busta Rhymes on Catfish and Ludacris on GTFO. And she has big shoes to fill at Top Dog Entertainment, where she's currently signed, and everything to prove, and prove it she does. She can do rap, rock, R&B, house. As she proudly proclaims on Boom Bap, she's everything. I have a lot of faith that she's one of the artists that can fill the Kendrick Lamar-sized hole over at TDE, which, to be fair, is a pretty small hole. I mean, that guy's like, what, 5'5"?
There was one day I pooped 8 times. That was the best day of my life.
I want you to stay till I'm in the grave.
In spite of the fact that Billie Eilish is already on her 3rd album at only 23 and has multiple Grammys and Oscars, with Hit Me Hard and Soft, it feels like she's just getting started. In case it wasn't clear from my short review and the second Q review, I think this is a consistent and eclectic pop album with a lot of punch packed into just 10 songs. Skinny is a heartfelt opener and tone setter, Wildflower and The Greatest are powerful ballads, the last few songs have so many enticing twists and turns. Smash hits like Lunch and of course Birds of a Feather both blew up for good reason. It's all killer and no filler, with Billie seeming self-assured throughout. Billie and Phineas are a well-oiled songwriting machine, and have found a way to keep getting better with every release. Between the song for the Barbie soundtrack, this album, and a collaboration with a certain someone who might show up later, I really hope that Billie can keep this hot streak going. Not much more to say here, it's great.
Kendrick Lamar, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, Drake.
Question. As of November 22nd, 2024, who's the real Wicked Witch of the West? Elphaba Throp? Or Kendrick Lamar?
All I ever wanted was a black Grand National. Fuck being rational, give them what they asked for. It's not enough. Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches.
Do I even really need to provide the context for this one? I'm probably the third white guy this week telling you about the beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar that dominated hip-hop discussions for the better part of 2024. While we were all still celebrating Kendrick's victory and recovering from everything that transpired, on an unsuspecting Friday morning, Kendrick surprised us all with GNX. Of course, the album contains many jabs at Drake. For example, after Drake attempted to slander Kendrick for not giving back to his community, Kendrick platformed up-and-coming diverse West Coast artists from both sides of the gang war on songs like the title track, Hey Now, and Peekaboo. The one exception to this being SZA, who Drake did name-check during the beef. Kendrick has phenomenal chemistry with her on Luther and closer Gloria. And when Drake insulted him for having over-the-top, showboaty lyricism, Kendrick comes through with an album that, for the most part, is effectively surface level. And that's not meant to be a point against it, more so that the album can be enjoyed with and without broader and deeper contexts, and what proves that is how fun and funny it is. This decade has seen Kendrick embrace just how funny he can be, and it's a sight to behold.
Aye. What? Yeah, I did that. Yeehaw, we outside. What about to kill him off?
There are serious moments on the album, however. The opener whacked out Murals has Kendrick demonstrating that despite whatever obstacles may come his way, he has an undying commitment to making high quality and high concept art. Man at the Garden has him proving his worth and that he deserves the spoils that he's worked for over the course of his career. And then there's Reincarnated, a respectful use of a Tupac instrumental, contrasting how Drake used AI to replicate Tupac's voice during the feud, where Kendrick receives spiritual guidance to use the life he's been given for good, examining where people in similar positions in history have encountered pitfalls. There's also Heart Part 6, a rightful reclaiming of Kendrick's long-running Heart series after Drake tried to take the 6th iteration for himself and ended up floundering and making an absolute fool of himself. On his version, Kendrick reminisces about the early days of TDE and his eventual departure from the label as well as supergroup Black Hippie. He maturely takes the high road and does not explicitly reference the beef at all on this particular song, even though this whole album cycle is a victory lap after utterly humiliating Drake. Songs like Squabble Up and TV Off are absolute bangers where Kendrick is in full effect over some bouncy Bay Area influenced production. Overall, this thing is excellent, a pleasant surprise that undoubtedly delivers, and I can't wait for what the Super Bowl performance and joint tour with SZA will hold.
Squabble up.
It's amazing. You're a genius. He's just like new.
And now I'd like to conduct a thought exercise. Imagine the Mario Kart 8 soundtrack, but 100 times hornier. After fronting the beloved experimental rock group Black Midi, who garnered a cult following online thanks to great albums like Cavalcade and Hellfire, Geordie Greep has released his debut solo album, The New Sound, not long after the group went on an indefinite hiatus earlier this year. By contrast, his solo efforts feel more focused and polished than that of the band's. However, there are many songs on here that started out as Black Midi songs. The album tells stories where the narrator is depraved, power-hungry, and has his hormones, how do I put this, in a tizzy. If the male loneliness epidemic creates quality content like this, I'm all in on keeping it going, even if it's at my own expense. From fleeing responsibility on a motorbike, to sacrificing everything for love through a war, and creating a laundry list of desires that ramp up to demands on the album's clear best song, Holy Holy, a manic love story where a man catches too many feelings for a sex worker and attempts to coax her into overlooking his insecurities. This same relationship seems to extend a few songs later on As If Waltz, and is concluded and mourned on sprawling songs like The Magician and If You Are But a Dream. Greep and guest vocalist Seth Evans make great raconteurs, with their oscillating and buttery singing voices, respectively. All of these stories are told over equally chaotic and captivating instrumentals, with some impressive musicality on display. Each vigorous riff and chord change left me floored, even the instrumental title track with its Woody Woodpecker lick. It's funky, it's proggy, it's definitely freaky in that elaborate font with the tongue emoji. If this is what sound sounds like now, it's an acquired taste, but I could definitely get used to it. My lone critique with this album is that the girl on the cover wasted 2 whole diamonds on that hoe in her hand. Although, maybe that's because it's what the narrator sees her as, a Diamond Hoe. Oh my god, it all makes sense now.
Imagination.
Magdalena Bay dropped one of my favorite albums of 2021 with their debut Mercurial World, and they improve upon their sound immensely on the immaculate Imaginal disc. Wow, this thing is electric. It takes you on a mind-melting journey through the imagination of a troubled protagonist who has the homonymous disc of the Imaginal variety implanted into her brain by otherworldly beings after searching for a way to become her ideal self, only for her body to reject it, which forces her to discover the meaning of life and humanity in a world of overarching insecurity amidst high volumes of technology and scrutiny. Magdalena Bay flawlessly realized this fictional yet relevant narrative with crafty lyrics that explain the story plainly enough to follow along, but not so dumbed down that it feels patronizing or distracting. Even the singles like Image or Death and Romance can be jammed out to without the broader context of the album. It's so easy to get lost in the variety of luxurious synthy soundscapes present throughout the track list. The duo really let each song expand and explore new ideas. Some tracks extend beyond even the 5-minute mark, which can't be said about any songs on their previous full length. However, the tracks that do deserve their duration, like on the multifarious Tunnel Vision or the grandiose Cry For Me. The album also has such a fantastic flow to it, heightening the immersion into its fantastical world. Members Matt and Mika absolutely killed it, and I'm so glad that this album is helping them get talked about more. If you're a sucker for a good synth like I am, insert the aforementioned Imaginal disc into your cranium receptacle.
Fuck my tag, fuck all of y'all smell like fucking dick on all of y'all. She had issues with her father, issues with my barber. She off all of these drugs, coconut butter, Pierre and Carter.
After dropping my favorite album of last year with Danny Brown, JPEGMAFIA returned this year with his new solo album, I Lay Down My Life For You. In many ways, it's yet another excellent JPEGMAFIA release, complete with his usual bellicose delivery and disjointed experimental production, like on I'll Be Right There or the Vince Staples collab New Black History. But there are key elements that help it feel bigger and better than other albums in his catalog. For instance, he leans into metal and punk on songs like Vulgar Display of Power and Sin Miedo, with powerful guitar chords that really ramp up the intensity. He also chooses samples that would only make sense in the current year, like a Brazilian funk song on It's Dark and Hell Is Hot, which I'm sure Peggy discovered on his memorable trip to the country, or, and I kid you not, an AI prompt that turns the lyrics of a classic song by Future into a bluesy 70s soul ballad, only for Peggy to repurpose it into the instrumental for Either On or Off the Drugs, a soul-bearing track where Peggy digs deep about his vices and inner demons. You couldn't make a song like this up if you tried, or even have a computer help do it for you. Peggy slams his competition and peers, especially those who he feels are undeserving of their status and praise due to their lack of hard work and dedication, qualities that he has in spades. He spends most of the album on the attack, but towards the end of the record, the guitars fade away, or change in tone. The second half of songs like Ex-Military and the Denzel Curry collab JPEG Ultra have him questioning his faith, as religious motifs are predominant in the album's title and cover. Peggy also confronts his own shortcomings, as well as toxic masculinity and mental health. Don't Put Anything on the Bible features a gorgeous intro from Buzzy Lee, and I Recovered From This samples these chilling vocals from a Janet Jackson song. The dark and personable lyrics on the latter about falling short in a relationship differ from his usual artist persona, and leaves the album on a somber yet pensive note. It all happened, it's all real, and it all just works. That's how you know you've heard a JPEGMAFIA album.
Charlie! Oh my god, thank goodness you're here.
I don't wanna share the space.
I mean, are we really surprised that Brat by Charli XCX is here? The Brat rollout was the gift that kept on giving this year. We had the standard edition, whose praises I sang in the second Q review, the deluxe that was the same except there were 3 more songs so it was not, and the expertly curated remix album featuring jaw-dropping collaborations, further development on the groundwork laid down by their original counterparts, and what ultimately felt like a gift of appreciation to old and new fans of hers. And then outside of the music, we had the cultural cultural impact of things like the vernacular, the Brat wall, the listening parties, the DJ sets, the dance, the fashion, the sweat tour. It was everywhere, and so Julia, obviously. Brat had the power to bring everyone together this year, gay sons and thought daughters alike. It was a Brat summer, a Brat fall, and even Brinter? We'll call it 2.5 out of 4 seasons of the year that were themed around this album and the archetype it birthed. The album's success steamrolled Charli's last album, which was actually trying to be appealing to a mainstream pop audience in her own words. And what may be the most shocking fact of all, the album was so ubiquitous because it was so good. With thumping bass, chunky drums, industrial percussion and synths, and Charli's quippy and idiosyncratic writing, with her voice drenched in autotune, that's Charli, baby. Or at least the Charli she introduced us to all the way back on Vroom Vroom. Brat is a pop album and a cultural moment that will be talked about for years to come. It was just something you had to be there for. And even 6 months after the release of the standard version, we're still bumping that beat. Before we get to number 1, here are 10 honorable mentions that just barely missed the list. It took me all year to learn how to pronounce his name, but McGee and his album 2-Star and the Dream Police was a solid piece of guitar-driven indie rock with splashes of R&B and psychedelia. It's dark and moody with some compelling funky melodies and stripped-back arrangements. A fantastic debut album. The Maria's album Submarine is maybe the most comforting album that I've heard all year. It's got these big, lustrous arrangements that sound so full and enveloping, really submerging you in its dreamy bedroom pop with a touch of Latin music. If you like the Clairo album, or even artists like Men I Trust, give this one a try. Dark Times is a more personal and brooding rap album from Vince Staples. The mellow instrumentals cater to Vince's nonchalant delivery while working in fun nods to Vince's previous work. Fitting for his last album under his contract with Def Jam. It felt a little too understated to me to make the main list, but I still enjoyed it quite a bit. A solid pop album with a healthy serving of breakbeats, the debut album from Nia Archives, Silence is Loud, is a jaunty and cheeky listen through a collection of ear-catching and relatable tunes. Nia and Pink Panthers, among others, are doing a great job at bringing back this invigorating sound and showing that there can be depth beneath its often rigid and dizzying exterior. Mavi's third album, Shadowbox, is a deeply existential but hopeful listen, which finds the Charlotte rapper pouring his heart out over these rich and soulful lo-fi instrumental bits, showing multitudes in a simple yet effective way, whether it's over warbly samples or glossy piano chords. An album that I discovered a bit too late in the year for me to really appreciate it, Fabiana Palladino's Self-Titled is a slick synth-pop record with a Soulquarian flair that her father, Pino Palladino, passed on to her. With some additional production from the elusive Jai Paul, this is one that definitely deserves more recognition. Nearly a decade after his previous album, Jamie XX's triumphant return in Waves is some of the most fun dance tracks you'll hear all year. It feels straight out of the club and comes complete with many excellent collaborations and blood-pumping beats, and plenty of soul to boot. Perfect soundtrack for a fun and memorable night out. The first artist to make my honorable mentions 2 years in a row, Joey Valence and Bray's No Hands, is another fantastic throwback rap record with an industrial flair and very unserious lyrics. These goofballs are on the path to greatness, and if 2024 wasn't such a stacked year for great releases, they absolutely would have made the list. The Thief Next to Jesus is a heavily contemplative album from underground hip-hop legend Ka that I discovered all too recently, as he unfortunately passed away not long after its release. It's a harrowing soundscape of dollar bin gospel samples where he explores the relationship between Christianity and the Black experience that turned me gray after finishing it. Rest in peace. And finally, my most streamed album of 2024, and one that went pretty overlooked, especially considering that it dropped the same day as Brat, Kaytranada's Timeless is yet another atmospheric deep house project with an abundance of fun guest appearances and quality production from Kaytra, per usual. For more thoughts on that one, check out its section in my second Q review. And that brings us to... Well, here we are again at the number 1 spot. We've talked about a lot of albums by many different artists, but there are a few common through lines that tie the albums on this list together. We have albums with incredible world building, or experimenting with sound and genre. Artists discussing the weight that comes with receiving accolades and praise, like Paranoia, Superficiality, and Depression, or competing with those who they deem unworthy of their status. Doing all of this while being unabashedly true to yourself, even with any flaws or insecurities, especially ones that come with getting older and later into your career. But when it comes to an album that has all of this and more, in my honest opinion, the choice was clear.
Chromakopia.
To those of you who know me personally, this should come as no surprise. I've been a fan of Tyler, the Creator, for years, and have an entire article on my website about how his album Igor saved my life, so when Tyler dropped the teaser for Saint Chroma, announcing his new album Chromakopia, I knew in the back of my mind that it would snipe the top spot on my list. Okay, all vague gushing aside, let me explain why this album is so good. The aforementioned opening track sets up two things. One, it introduces the Saint Chroma character, a masked figure with big hair who we see in Tyler's music videos, as well as on the album cover. The character appears in military getup, possibly to signify the rigid and unwavering passage of time as it marches on, if you will, or possibly because Tyler's been enamored with the aesthetics of the troops since the music video and live performances of See You Again. The mask of his own face is smooth and expressionless, hiding his real emotions but also any visible signs of age and stress, things Tyler grapples with on songs like Tomorrow and Noid, respectively. And the hair is meant to be an embrace of his culture and heritage, a part of his identity he flaunts proudly and could never sacrifice, a sentiment he displays on the song I Killed You. But the other thing Saint Chroma does is introduce a recurring figure throughout the album. Tyler's own mother, Bonita Smith, who pops up every now and then, mostly at the beginning or the end of a song, to provide some sage advice that Tyler, or Saint Chroma, either exemplifies or directly contradicts and faces the consequences. We mostly see the latter approach of this narrative device in the tracks where Tyler discusses his romantic endeavors. Hey Jane has Tyler tell both sides of a pregnancy scare with shocking detail and realism. Judge Judy is a beautifully tragic song that chronicles a relationship that starts out passionate until it's cut short by Judy after her untimely passing. As opposed to previous songs of Tyler's about relationships that felt a bit one-sided, like Wilshire off of Call Me If You Get Lost, these songs give the other side more depth and puts you in a position where you start to question whose fault the predicament they're in really is. On the production side, Tyler remains untouchable. It actually hit me after watching the Pharrell Williams Lego movie Piece by Piece how much Tyler has been and continues to be inspired by Pharrell. Darling I sounds like a classic Neptunes track, even down to the sample of the iconic mouth clicks from Snoop Dogg's Drop It Like It's Hot. And the Southside percussion and marching band fills on the beat for Sticky are incredibly Pharrell. It's also nice to see a posse cut like this elicit reactions like this.
Sticky situation, discombobulation, call me real.
After this point in the album though, Tyler decides to take his mask off, made evident by the aptly titled song, Take Your Mask Off, where he confronts several hypocritical parties, including himself. It's past this point where we see him truly speak his mind about what's been irking him lately. We see him with the mask off for most of the music video for Thought I Was Dead, where he attacks those who might try to take him down for what he's said or done in the past. While his argument opens up a bigger conversation that could and should be discussed another time, I will say that I'm glad he hasn't gone the Eminem route, making his whole personality being uncancelable. Then we arrive at Like Him, a gut-wrenching ballad where Tyler fights the notion that he looks like his absentee father, after trying for so many years to distinguish himself as his own independent person. What's even more heartbreaking is the final moments of the song, where his mom closes the loop on why his father isn't in his life. It's because of her younger self, and has nothing to do with Tyler's father, who actually wanted to be there for him. More than 10 years after the song Answer from Tyler's album Wolf, and 15 after his song and album Bastard, both of which have Tyler showing much disdain for his lack of a real father figure, it's nice to see him getting one step closer to closure on this new song. Perhaps at a time in his life where he's mature enough to understand the gravity of the situation. But there's a third concept that Saint Chroma introduces, and the final moments of the album bring it full circle. The album kicks off with introducing the concept of one's inner light, letting it guide and motivate them, and not letting others get in the way of it. The penultimate track, Balloon, is an appraisal of his strong work ethic, and shout out to Doechii from a few spots ago, who shows up for a standout guest verse. And the closer, I Hope You Find Your Way Home, has Tyler checking in with himself, his mind state, and where he's at in his career. The closing moments of the album are his mom crying and encouraging him to keep going, keep shining, and keep marching. Tyler accepts this vote of confidence, and after a synth solo and a reprise of the Chromakopia chant from the beginning of the album, it comes to an end. Truly a masterful body of work, and my favorite album of 2024. Oh yeah, and Ratata is a fun banger. I kind of forgot to talk about that one.
Good, I'm Pisces.
And those are my 10 favorite albums of 2024. Doing another one of these videos was incredibly fun, and special thanks to V, once again, for coming through and editing it. Her link tree will be in the description. And what a great first year this channel has had! Since the top 20 of 2023 video, I've done a bit of experimenting with the type of content that you could expect from this channel. I've started multiple recurring series that have all yet to make it past 2 installments, but I think I really hit my stride with the short reviews, where I put together my initial thoughts on an album in a minute or less. I really like making these videos and hope to do more throughout next year, and maybe put out some longer form essay style videos at some point. I'm open to any suggestions for topics to discuss if you'd like to leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, have a happy new year, and subscribe for more music discussion.